America, and welcome to episode 2 of Between Two Ideologues, the Fox News show that gives you two widely divergent political opinions on one unfortunate guest. With us today is Republican gubernatorial candidate Santana Afton. Santana, welcome to the program.
Hi, Malloy. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure. Mr. Afton, to start out, we'd appreciate it if you'd give us a brief formulation of what you think the most important issues in this campaign are.
So our main focus this year is really going to be on education, and specifically the education of women in STEM. We also believe that really the economy is also very important. That's our second most important topic.
Mr. Afton, could you tell us a little bit more about your tax plan?
Sure. So to start things off, our tax plan is really going to start by cutting taxes by 0.75% across all tax brackets, including those from $0 to $999.
Now, can you justify to me why you think billionaires should receive such?
Mr. Afton, do you think that 0.75% is really going to suffice?
Hold on. If I could interject here. So, Maida, the whole point about the tax breaks is that we're also going to be reforming the tax code. I've been looking at the tax code a lot recently, and if you look at it, there are two main sections. There's the gross income, and then there's the taxable income. And the taxable income comes after deductions and exemptions, et cetera, et cetera. So if you look at the ratios, the tax bracket of $100,000 and above is actually 7% less. Their taxable income is 7% less than their gross income as compared to the next lowest bracket. So we're really going to be cutting down on harmful exemptions and deductions while at the same time decreasing taxes to sort of balance things out.
You show an impressive knowledge of the issue, Mr. Afton.
Thank you.
And I wonder if you could cite a few exemptions that you think are particularly harmful.
Well, we haven't actually been able to pinpoint what exactly it is. I've been looking through a lot of tax credits. We also, one point of our economic policy...
Just to interject, Mr. Afton, aren't these exemptions that you're talking about often benefits that help out the poor and minority communities in Virginia?
Maida, for a person whose party tends to crack down on corporate privilege, I'm a little surprised that you're attempting to frame tax exemptions in terms of
trying to crack down on corporate privilege. I don't think we've really had much success yet, Malloy, thanks to your party.
Or really to the policy that you just mentioned, I think. But moving on.
I agree with Mr. Afton here.
Thank you, Malloy. So you're completely right in that many of these exemptions do help poor people, but some of them do not. Some of them are very specific to these people who make $100,000 and up, and quite honestly aren't fair and aren't relevant to those in lower tax brackets. And those are the ones we're going after.
Well, I suppose as long as you've put equal focus on all of them, then.
Of course. And another thing about taxes, we're also thinking of really encouraging an increase in tax credits, such as the low-income housing tax credit. So that might alleviate some fears you have about that.
Okay. Mr. Afton, to move to another issue, you've altered your platform significantly in the last few days, moving arguably to the right on several important issues,
yes,
including energy, among others. And certain commentators have criticized you for flip-flopping, but others have framed your decision as pragmatism. So could you speak to the factors that influenced your decision to alter some of your platform issues?
Well, really, a lot of it has been personal growth on my part. As I've been campaigning around the state, I've really started speaking more and more with more people, and that is
by personal growth, don't you mean you're trying to reach out to your base?
No, I mean personal growth.
I think we have to respect Mr. Afton's definition of his personal growth. I don't think we can attempt to impose our opinions on his personal decisions. So I hope you'll let him continue, Maida.
Don't you feel you're being scared to the right because there are too many other...
Perhaps instead of framing the issue in ideological terms, we should just let Mr. Afton speak for himself, Maida. I don't know.
I wouldn't say that I'm being scared of the right. I'm saying I would be more influenced of the right of the people of Virginia. So as I was saying, we've been campaigning around Virginia, and I've been able to speak with more and more people, and that has influenced what I believe Virginians want, and so that has caused that shift. To the accusation of flip-flopping, I think it's personally a rather ridiculous claim in many campaigns due to the inability of people to be able to change their beliefs at any point.
Yeah, so would you say that your ability to respond to the opinions and needs of Virginians now reflects the fact that while in office you'll also be able to have a flexible plan and change your policies according to the situation?
Precisely.
Very good. All right. And we mentioned energy. Would you discuss some of the changes in your energy platform, particularly as related to coal?
Yes. So one focus that we have introduced is the focus on coal and responsible and innovative use of clean coal. Coal is a large industry in Virginia,
Isn't
and we
clean
want to.
coal simply a euphemism? It doesn't actually speak to coal.
Actually,
that
Maida,
burns
if you've done any
anything.
research on clean coal technology, you realize that remarkable strides are being made in lowering emissions while utilizing this
Why are you not focusing
critical
on
natural
actual
resource.
green innovations, technology such as solar
Well,
panels?
Why are you not
actually-
focusing on the Virginia
one second.
economy?
Malloy, that's
Why
actually,
wouldn't
Maida, you
the-
bring up a really good point.
Instituting solar
So the
panels
whole
would
point
bring
of
jobs.
our coal plan is also going to be balancing out. There's a large system in place to gradually, over decades, phase out coal as green industry and as green technology increases.
But unlike my co-anchor, you don't want to leave Virginia's vast reserves of coal rotting in the ground
Of course not.
while we
Does coal
spend
rot?
millions of unrepaid dollars
Don't
on
believe it
subsidies
does.
for dubious industries that have not yet reached full fruition.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think a focus on coal is good, while at the same time focusing on green energy. One important point to make about green energy is that it's far easier to be dirty in our energy than it is to be clean. So that means that cleaning up is going to require more jobs and more education, and that means more opportunities for the citizens of Virginia to get the jobs that they need right now.
Okay. Mr. Afton, all three candidates in this race, yourself, Mr. Cox, and that libertarian candidate, I can't remember his name, shoot. Sorry,
Does
but
anybody-
it
I think
doesn't
starts
matter.
with
No.
D.
Maybe,
Really?
maybe.
Not quite
The
sure.
libertarian candidate, whose name we will look up for you. All three are liberal on the social issues, abortion and gay marriage. But tell us why you present something of an alternative to the blanket liberal view of these issues.
Well, there's really more of a conservative touch to these liberal ideas. Of course, I'm for gay marriage, but personally, I feel that I won't get involved. I'll merely aid any
Aren't you
support
simply
that comes
espousing
from.
a liberal viewpoint but couching it in terms that voters would find favorable?
No, it's my personal viewpoint. I think that right now the Constitution of Virginia states that gay marriage is illegal, and as governor, I should uphold that Constitution. However, if a large contingency within Virginia wishes to change that, of course I would be supportive of that.
Again, demonstrating his responsiveness to popular opinion.
So you'd rather be at the whims of the people than do the right thing and bring civil rights to the many gay Virginians.
I mean, if they stepped up and they said,
I
this
think
is what
Maida's
we want.
assessment of a moral consensus is out of place, frankly.
I think you're being ruled by the tyranny of the majority, but I think we can move along.
All right. Abortion also.
Yes, so with
Support
abortion,
abortion.
we will be pro-choice. However, we will be reviewing the safety standards of clinics and reforming them to make the clinics more safe. We'll also be creating a system.
Santana, I would just like to pose a question to you. Would you
go for it.
sign the law that is currently before the governor that would put forth so-called health regulations that would close most of the clinics in Virginia?
Yeah, Mr. Afton, would you sign the law currently before the governor, which would
Are you
ensure
simply
that abortion
restating what I'm
clinics
saying,
remain,
Roy?
the numerous abuses and health violations that occur in many abortion clinics would be prevented
I
and regulated?
object
If-
to your tone,
Hold on,
Roy.
Maida. So, to answer both of your questions, honestly, I haven't read the entire bill yet. I don't know each specific point. However,
You hear that,
Our-
Virginia? He doesn't even read the bills.
at least I pay mine. So,
Oh,
the point is that our health regulations will merely make clinics safe. They won't put them out of business. They'll just disallow abuses of abortion.
So you would sign that into law?
No, I wouldn't.
Okay.
Because there's a difference between regulations that are so extreme as that they do not permit these clinics to be created and those that merely make them more safe.
perhaps it would be wise to read the bill before assessing whether or not a regulation is intended to actually shut clinics down.
I think I might agree with Malloy on this one. I'm not really sure what your position really is on this matter.
I thought it was pretty clear.
Once you,
I mean, I think it's relatively clear. I just think he
Thank
ought to
I think you ought to
ensure that
revise
the
the
current
bill
the current
before he
the current bill
offers
does not
anything.
necessarily attempt to close abortion clinics, and that assumption is predicated on liberal assumptions about Republican intentions, which are often, frankly, absurd. So
the bill as currently posed would close a great majority, 24 out of 28, I believe.
because of safety violations, which puts women's health at
I
risk.
mean, yours is the party that advocates back alley abortions, Malloy.
And yours is the party which back alley abortions. Did I hear
That
you
is
correctly?
what you would drive women to.
That's a patent absurdity. Back alley abortions.
Okay, maybe we should move along. I
Because-
feel like we're coalescing in a
I feel like
place.
you're claiming that
Malloy.
Republicans. You're making a whole series of absurd claims.
You know, if we
Your
could actually move on
indignation
from
is
this issue, I
noted.
think it would be really important to note another point about abortions is that not specifically about abortions themselves, but also sexual education. That's another platform that we're really going to be pushing is factual sexual education. There's been a wide prevalence of untrue sexual education that has gone on not only nationally, but also in Virginia, and we seek to rid that.
Okay, I can't pretend to know anything about the issue,
I completely
but
agree with you. There has
Very
been a way. I think it's ridiculous that Republicans advocate that there should be minimal sex education or teaching of abstinence only, and then are surprised when people get pregnant and need abortions.
However, to qualify that, I do also believe that we will be creating this system, but it would be the local school's choice whether or not to accept it, as well as religious institutions.
And Maida,
I believe religious freedom
is
is
the
very important.
idealist hope that we can create a society in which citizens can be educated to virtue? Is that so far? So
or how
far
about
from
they
your
just be
consciousness?
educated so they can practice safe sex so they won't need abortions?
But it just saddens me, Maida, that you completely write off the possibility that we can educate a virtuous citizenry, and that's something that's been characteristic of the Democratic Party for many years, and
Your lack of touch with reality
I
saddens me, Malloy.
I'm just deeply disturbed by that. Oh, Mr. Afton,
Yes.
another question. Do you, many conservatives are deeply disturbed by requirements that institutions whose founding moral principles would lead them to oppose offering abortion or contraception to their employees. The requirement that they do so. For instance, the recent HHS mandate. Obviously, that's not a Virginia issue, but as governor, would you?
HHS mandate? Are you referring
Health
to
and
the
Human
part?
Services,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm aware, but like, are you talking about the part of Obamacare,
Yes,
that
which
provides
which would require.
which is a national?
It is. However, I'm using that as an example. But as
Okay.
in your capacity as governor, would you favor permitting such institutions a religious exemption?
To a point, I favor religious exemption for abortions, not contraception.
Okay.
I feel that contraception should be a very simple thing, and it leads to less abortions, of course, because there'll be less family planning without it. So I really think that staying true to their moral values in terms of abortion I'm totally okay with that.
And interestingly, I think that puts you the farthest to the right of any of the three candidates in this campaign on that issue.
Thank you.
All right. Before we move on, I'd like to hear a little about your personal story and tell us how that influenced your capacity to lead and your fitness as Virginia governor.
Okay. Well, I was born in Charlottesville, and when I was 3, I moved to Tallahassee, Florida. And many years later, I moved back to Charlottesville, and I've been living here for 13 years. Right out of high school, I went to a college to get my education degree, and I became a chemistry teacher for many years. And then afterwards, I decided to leave the field of teaching and pursue a law degree.
Okay.
So I feel that really my experience as a chemistry teacher has really influenced my emphasis on education and my belief that education is what can really spur moral values in a
Did you
person.
teach here in Virginia, Mr.
I did
Afton?
not.
So you're new to politics, are you?
Fairly. I understand many aspects of the law in Virginia.
Of course, but
yes.
you haven't held political office. So how does this work for you? What do you see as positive about your relative inexperience in our political system?
Well, I think it really gives me a fresh perspective on this. I have no existing ties to many politicians here. There are no pockets in which I may or may not be in at this point. So I think that that's a very, very important point.
Don't you think, in a way, though, your inexperience and lack of political connections could actually be a disservice to the voters of Virginia because they'll be voting for a candidate?
Frankly, Mr. Afton is faced with a candidate who's well known as a Washington insider, Mr. Cox, So I think
That's a very
the
good point.
contrast is illuminating, and I'm impressed by how favorably he shows up compared with.
And,
Mr.
I'm
Afton.
simply
another point to
questioning
make
the
is that it's very
effectiveness of a
important to have new
candidate
blood in
without
politics,
ties in
especially in this
Richmond.
in this modern world. Politics in really in,
If you
in
had allowed me to
Washington,
finish
like
my sentence, Mr. Afton, I was simply questioning the effectiveness.
Who is
of
the guest on this show?
thank you.
Thank you.
I think, as Malloy pointed out, we do have a Washington insider trying to run. You all know him as Ryan Cox, and I feel that the Washington politics, as seen as through the government shutdown right now, is laughable. I think it's ridiculous, and getting new blood into the politics system, whether nationally or statewide, is very important.
Quite right. Are there any further issues on education, taxation, energy that you'd like to address, or?
I don't believe
do
we
you think
talked
we've
about
covered?
gun rights.
Yes.
That's
I'd like
one
to hear your
point.
position on gun rights.
Just, I believe that the Second Amendment says it all. We will be reviewing the restrictions on people being allowed to purchase machine guns or automatic weapons. I feel that citizens are able to protect themselves with merely a semi-auto weapon. They don't need automatic weapons to defend themselves. However, I acknowledge
So
that many.
you believe that semi-automatic weapons are a right of the American system
I don't
citizen,
think
even
that's
though that's
what Mr.
something
Yes,
not even the
it's-
founding fathers had conception of, able to fire so many bullets at once, in so much so that you could maybe kill
Maida,
28
are you a strict
children at once?
constructionist? What's
Well,
going on here?
Actually, it's really important to note that many of the major student shootings, especially at schools, have happened in states that have stricter gun laws.
Yeah, quite right. And
Because that there's because of the looseness of gun laws in other states where they can acquire guns, where they can go to gun shows with no license and acquire these weapons. It's because of this laxness that is pervasive throughout the country. One state cannot implement gun laws that would prevent someone bringing them into that state. I believe the point you've just brought up is not valid.
I think Mr. Afton is showing a lot of
If
courage.
you look at any European
in
country,
opposing the
India,
popular
Asia, and
tide
countries
of,
where they have banned guns, the
of
amount
gun
of gun
restrictions right
violence
now,
is
which is spearheaded by
extremely
the
minimal.
I mean, I think the
And
point of
guns that
Switzerland
are
is very important. Many
do.
families in Switzerland have guns within their household, and their crime rate is very low.
In fact, Swiss citizens are required to own guns.
And you know where it's
Thank
even
you.
lower? Where places where they don't have them at all.
Yes, I think the point is it's very complicated, but definitely I believe that people have a right. Simply, they have a right to their life, and they have a right to hold guns if they choose. And it is
Well,
true
I
that
believe
many.
your interpretation of the Second Amendment and mine are probably different, but
Yes,
I don't-
believe
Maida, I
in
don't
a
know
little
that
bit more
you-
personal
I don't know
rights.
that you
Yeah,
have an
I-
interpretation of the Second Amendment, Maida.
I believe it says something about a militia in there, Malloy, and I don't believe it says anything about a person in
Really,
and
I-
of
I'm
themselves
I'm not
militia-
having
entirely
the
sure
right
that
to
you
bear arms.
believe the Second Amendment is a good thing, but we can talk about that later.
I believe you have a right to a well-regulated militia.
Oh,
And the
I'm
right to
glad
bear
hear
arms.
that. Very good. Well, I think we've covered all the bases, unless Mr. Afton disagrees. So I thank
Yeah,
you
I
for
think so.
watching, and I think this has been a very informative interview. We
Yes.
look forward to seeing you on our next show.